Namaste. Welcome to today's 60-minute yin practice. My name is Jaya with Prana Yoga Studio. I would like to share from the Tao Te Ching. It said, look and it can't be seen. Listen and it can't be heard. Reach and it can't be grasped. Above isn't bright, below isn't dark. Seamless, unnameable, it returns to the realm of nothing. Form that includes all forms, image without an image, and subtle beyond all conception. Approach it and there is no beginning. Follow it and there is no end. You can't know it, but you can be it, at ease in your own life. Just realize where you came from. This is the essence of wisdom. My prayer for this practice is that it returns you to the essence of your wisdom, through wandering the inner pathways and getting underneath of our contracted patterns and relaxing back into the expansive, pregnant nothingness through which all form arises. Begin by finding a really stable and supportive seat for your body. Like myself, you may wish to use a block under the sits bones, a cushion, or simply rolling the end of the mat up. Once you've found a supportive seat, the gaze can become soft, and if comfortable, the eyes close. And taking time to allow the external to become internal as you slowly begin to shift, getting underneath the sentry and finding your own unguarded heart as the weight of the body sighs into the earth. The earth too breathes into your body. And there's a sense of stability, being held without being contained. Allowing the spine to elementally unravel as you sense earth, water, fire, and air. The shoulders are dropping out of the base of the skull, and there's a deep restedness between ribs and pelvis. Connecting now to the ocean that stirs gently on your insides as the mind relaxes into the ebb and flow of natural breath. And it's always okay whatever the mind is doing. Walt Whitman reminded us that we are large and contain multitudes. Complexities refine into simplicity as we begin to lengthen and open the breath. The next inhalation rises from the pelvis, the ocean tides, and as you exhale, the waves recede, emptied of the shore, gathering the belly, gati gati, gone beyond. Every inhalation a newness, like the fresh spring rain. And as you exhale, the outworn structures empty, and the ancient wisdom reclaims a little belly squeeze at the bottom of the breath. Continue to lengthen your breath over several more cycles. You may wish to use Ujjayi Pranayama or just working with a soundless but very full breath style. And where caterpillar meets cocoon, allow the palms to gather into the heart, toning a silent but resonant inward Om. And going towards the temple bells, you may wish to bring a little light into the eyes, releasing the prop from under the sits bones as you draw your body towards all fours. Once arrived, widen the knees to the bankless river, shifting the hips back into edgeless existence. Begin to walk the fingers forward and allow your forehead to pour down into the mystery, child's pose. You can feel free to use a prop under the forehead, or instead turn to a cheek, giving yourself the first few moments in which you arrive in a space of grace, letting the superfluous movements become quiet, and relaxing into that which you already are, like a child who has yet to put on their suit of personality. Trust that the sound of my voice will help you return. Occasionally, I'll be shifting out of postures ahead of when I suggest your own shifting. Begin to notice how the breath moves into the ache in the bones. The eyes are closed. And slowly, we're carving pathways in the meridians, rerouting our neurology, as though we were building new scaffolding upon which we can step higher and eventually fly. In child's pose, we open the main meridians of the body, the lower meridians or yin meridians, simultaneously. This wakes up the subtle body and helps us reclaim our understanding of multidimensional existence, who we are under the identity, under where the mind is grasped, and yet where the heart lets go. And the mind might dance between form, the way the eyes gaze at the night sky, sensing the wishing star, seeing Jupiter and Orion's belt, all the great light show of the northern lights, and then staring into the great beyond, the blue-black of the ocean breathed in the low spine. As you stimulate and restore balance to the kidneys and the urinary bladder meridian system, trust the process as you follow each breath, the same care of a mother to a newborn, or new lovers as they meet eye to eye. Good. Let's take our final breath here, inhaling through the pelvic bones. And a sigh. The body shape shifts, slowly resurfacing towards all fours. Notice any temptation to rush as you quietly walk the knees underneath of the pelvis. Walking the knees further backwards, we'll take a brief rest, a brief shavasana on the belly. If lying on the belly feels compromising, you can of course come to the side or to the spine. Give the weight of your body into the arms of the earth. An ecstatic embrace as you sense the body's intelligence in renewing the inner path. Inviting yourself to stay further, like soaking in a warm bath. Or if you're ready, bringing awareness to movement by gently resurfacing the head, elevating the body enough that you can gather the elbows underneath of the shoulders. The forearms are roughly parallel to the long edges of your path, Sphinx Pose. Some people do enjoy grounding the forehead under a prop. And if your spine is quite sensitive, the elbows further ahead can rest the rib cage and reduce the curve in the low back. When your body recognizes a space in which it can surrender, allow the eyelids to close and resolve to be still. In stillness, we gain new ground. It's okay if the mind wanders. Lovingly placing the rein of concentration around the mind and coming back into embodied breathing. As though you could feel the inhalations climbing through the inseams of the legs. And as you exhale, a waterfall releasing breath by breath. Through the kidney meridians, we find what they call in Taoism the two wills, a yang will and a yin will. The yang will needs to accept the yin will. We quiet down the best of our ideas and come into contact with the heart of the breath. Who am I in this no-thingness from which I glimpse everything? If the mind has wandered, coming back to the breath. And you can stay here if you reached a compassionate edge. If it feels available, you can transfer from Sphinx into Seal Pose by rising the elbows, ensuring that the tissues around the gluteals stay relatively soft. But you can also place a gentle tone in the belly to support the low back. sense the hydrating quality of the breath, as though we were greasing the mind and all the rusty wind settles. The dancing leaves become quiet, and there is the smell of sunshine. Gentle awareness emanates from the kidneys, a quiet courage, the ability to meet the moment. Good, let's take one more breath with the empty phenomenon, inhaling. And you can sigh. Very gently begin to release the back bend, feeling free to make motions that encourage the movement of qi in the body. When or if ready, allow the body to pour to a cheek, to the forehead, or turning to the spine. A single raindrop in a quiet pond. The ripple begins to stir your body, and softly you resurface, taking your time, gently rising your way towards all fours. Once you're on all fours, walk the knees center. You may wish, like me, to turn the body so that you can lengthen each foot towards the top and the back of your particular mat. Props under the sits bones, again, can be quite useful, or a prop placed ahead of you. In your anatomy, leaning backwards might feel best supported, or you might be taking your time to slowly come forward, little by little, as the eyes close and the body drops. And we empty of the ways in which we manipulate both ourselves and our concepts that layer and deteriorate the moment. Being with what is, as you sense the breath in its myriad nuances through the body. This is a challenging pose for most of our bodies. These tissues tend to be quite congested. But of course, there is also an overarching vulnerability as we allow ourselves to be unusually open, riding the circular continuum of grief and pleasure, and being initiated in every followed breath. If the mind is decision-making, concept creating, or past grasping, relax into the wave of breath, sensing the lines of energy from the sole of the foot into the pelvis. As we follow that single raindrop in its merging union with the ocean, One wave not separate from the whole body of water, and the whole body of water not separate from the one drop. If the mind has wandered, coming back to the breath, because concentration is purifying. The depth of the breath helps to wake up the pranic body. This loosens deeply knotted beliefs, and we can be with the moment unmediated, the Dharma and this Tao. Sense the open space of the inner vase. Flower the breath for one more inhale. And again, you can sigh. The toes initiate movement, and if you were folded, rising the body up. This one can be particularly supported with slower movement. I enjoy taking the hands under the knees and gently drawing the inner knees together, using and utilizing motion that feels relevant to fluidity, and then allowing the body to be a quiet and sincere blanket upon the path. Just this brief rest. Sensing the back of the skull and each elbow, the pelvis, the calves, and the heels. And the body simply drops. One petal emptied from the rose bloom. Following the phases of your inner cycle, stay resting if it feels relevant, or rolling yourself perhaps to the right side and gently supporting yourself in finding a simple seat. Once you centered to the sits bones, bending through both of your knees, allow the knees to lotus open as you connect the soles of the feet together. You can always roll the mat up, elevating the sits bones again, using or not using any kind of prop support, allowing the chin to humble towards the chest, closing the eyes, and simply following the breath. In butterfly pose, we expunge the pathways of several meridians simultaneously. Moving through the spleen, the liver, the kidney, But letting ourselves get underneath of this conceptual framework, trusting all of your sensations, as we learn to cultivate a broader range of sensation, opening the window of tolerance and recognizing that pregnant nothingness. Form is no other than emptiness, and emptiness is no other than form. If the mind has wandered, come back to the mulchy breath of the earth, inhaling the redwood trees, the stinging nettle, and the sound of the bumblebee. As you exhale, the perfume of wildflower winds around every treetop, every floral stem, and the perennial grass. Good, let's take that final breath together. Last inhale. Staying longer if you are not yet complete, or carefully rising through the back of the heart to remove prop support. Allow the knees to wing together as the heels reach forward and the spine unravels, letting muscles and bones, tendons and ligaments, and the inherent openness settle to the earth. Changing constellation in the skies. Through the inclemental weather, a ray of light, and the body is warm, and the river is fluid. Rest is a high spiritual practice. Choose for further rest or reorientating towards the right side. Sublimely surfacing, finding a simple seat. As you anchor the sits bones, walk the legs long ahead of you. Again, rolling up the mat under the pelvis can support the turn of the pelvis. You can stay quite upright if you have disc troubles in the back, or a little prop support underneath of bent knees can be very valuable. Closing the eyes and folding to any capacity suitable in your anatomy. begin to sense how the breath moves like water, flowing from the highest to the lowest, touching all the dead roots and nourishing those which are safely embedded, just one breath by one breath. We are releasing not only the tissues of the back body, but of course the urinary bladder meridian that runs underneath and is interwoven with these tissues. As we do this, we allow increased functioning into both the anatomical kidney as well as the energetic kidney body. This will allow your system to make chi from breath, to enhance your congenital jing, or the energy that was gifted to you through your lineage. Every inhale, there is a sense of acquiring energy. And every exhalation, emptied of stagnancy, excesses balance. And there's nothing to know. Relaxing the way we reify the self through our inner monologue, becoming less self-conscious as we saturate the cells with breath. Who are you under your fears? Who are you under your plans? Who are you when you are free of your story? The urinary bladder meridian is deeply in touch with the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Begin to sense a regulation in your nerves, as though we were pouring an oily bath all the way through the center of the bones, as the marrow begins to glow like the quiet coals that support the dancing fire. Let's take one more inhale to the hot embers. The transitions can feel a little achy in yin. Take your time to let the body acclimate as it rises. You may wish to saddle one hip to the side, keeping the core quite relaxed as you unravel all of your paradigms as well as your person upon the path. Occupy just some space as you remember the space that you are. And the body drops. And the wind currents catch a child's kite. Somewhere dancing is always happening, even amidst the stillness. The sun rests in the night. You may wish to stay in this rest as well, or beginning to bend through both of your knees. Draw the knees towards the belly. Allow the knees to spill down to the side of your preference, not a right or wrong. Once your knees have spilled to the side, we're inviting the bottom leg to slide backwards. You'll see if your opposite hand can take a hold of that bottom foot. A prop can feel useful under that top knee, though it's certainly not necessary. You can take a little bit of time to arrange yourself in what's called catch the tail. I find this pose can be very supportive of the tissues around the sacral iliac joint, helping to hydrate and reset this sacred triangular bone at the top of the buttocks or the very, very low back. It is here that we have what's called a granthi, or an energetic knot. And we are unwinding it with the ancient wisdom of the breath. As you relax into the essence of that which you already are. The neck relaxes. Each eyebrow is unwound. Gentle compression upon the spleen and stomach meridians. The spleen is the seat of possibilities. It has a direct relationship to our thinking mind and our addiction to worry. Worry is just an energy that feels as though we're accomplishing something. And so we scale ourselves under this habit by disappearing into the out-breath. It's okay. The mind is in its history or in its anticipation. And yet the depth of mind cannot be housed in a concept. Come to the sensation of breathing, sensing the breath being coaxed between the ribs, sensing the breath being coaxed into the heart. Good, let's take one last breath, inhaling here. Release any clasp you may have on one or both of your legs. Allow the chi to slip through the knees as you turn to the spine. You can always wiggle or shake or twist differently before entering this winter of rest for a few breaths. The cool air of dawn. The sun opening its eager eye through the sky. And your own palette of sunrise. And the body drops and drops and drops. Respecting your individual pacing for rest, you could stay here or bending again through both of the knees for second side, drawing the knees closer towards the belly. Invite your knees to the second side. If you were catching the tail, as they say in yin speak, then sliding that bottom foot backwards, seeing if the opposite hand can find the foot or the ankle, and scooting around enough that you have a position that is viable for surrender and breath. And the eyes close, so we access subtle information under the ordinary mechanisms of ordinary mind. This pose also begins to release the gallbladder meridian. This is the yang meridian tied to the liver or yin meridian. And through the gallbladder, we begin to relax our cognitive dissonance, dimming the energy of frustration as we find at times no action is the highest action. The feminine process of waiting and the impeccability of divine timing. Who are you in the absence of rush, in the absence of attachment, when you do not have to perform your personality and are simply your unique essence? In twisting, we very gently begin to rehydrate the lumbar spine, relaxing the emotional burden, the essential self, breathing. It's okay if the mind has done some of its smoke and mirror. Return to the physical sensations as a grounding anchor in the paradox of grounding the body. We then unmoor the heart. and we rest in the boat of our being. Just a few more breaths. Sense the nurturing quality of the inhale, golden light in the cells. And the sound of the wind whistling in the distance through the exhales. Good, let's take that last inhale. Releasing any bind on either foot or leg. Allow the body to shapeshift to the sacrum, the sits bones, and the elongation of the limbs. Dropping into a brief space of rest in which nothingness accomplishes everything. The seed embedded in the fertile grounds, you may favor staying a little longer or bending through both of the knees, drawing the knees to the respective shoulders, where you may hang onto the knees here, or soles of the feet above the knees, finding reasonable clasp. I often like my peace fingers on my big toes. It's okay if that's not true for you. It's not a wrong way to hang on. And there's not a wrong way to be in this moment. You can close the eyes. And a sense of moving beyond the surface. The macro distills into the micro, and the micro expresses in the macro. Going underneath the garden bed, through the layered fertilizer, and just resting in the husks of the heart. This pose can be sensitive at either end of the flexibility spectrum. Ensure that your sensations are dull and achy, like far away thunder, and the brief sighting of the sky lit in the rain. As we relax our defenses, as we relax into the unconscious, we reconcile opposites. We embrace paradox, and this gives us access to the gold embedded in the shadows, like medicinal plants uncovered in the heart of the rainforest. Good. Taking the final breath here, deep inhale. Empty the bind. Fall the heels to the seat. Allow your knees to close together and embrace your totality, rolling the nose up to the knees before inviting yourself into our final Shavasana, stretching out for a deeper Shavasana. This may mean that you would like to gather any kind of warm, supportive blanket. Allowing the body adaptability and fluidity until you are simply here in the nowhere that is everywhere. Soft on the forehead. Sense the scalp of the skull awake. The corners of the chest release. And each arm seems heavy. A wave of relaxation down the core of the body. Trusting balanced cortisol levels as one leg and then the second leg also becomes heavy. Sensing the remineralization of your bones even as we decalcify the boat of the being. In this deep rest, we cross the sea of suffering and samsara. The bondage of our karma is freed. What will we do with our freedom? I'll be leaving you in a period of silence. You can be assured that the sound of my voice will bring you back at the end of our shared space. No behind and no ahead. Just profoundly here. Nowness awakens the fingers as an articulated presence, and energy currents roll through the arms to the heart, through the legs to the pelvis, gently stirring the belly, turning the personality with just a couple of deeper breaths. When you are sufficiently aroused, you can roll the body over to the right side and just stay resting on the right side, curled into fetal position, sensing the one and the many. The pregnant emptiness, like the dark womb when you close your eyes and see inside. And then rows and rows of spectacular wildflowers. How this life loves diversity. In quiet support from the arms, gather your presence to rise up and find a simple seat. Again, you may wish to use a prop under the sits bones, a cushion. Sitting against a wall in the comfort of your home can be very supportive. Brief meditation. When you sense the body has arrived, which means the mind is here, close the eyes, releasing each eyebrow from center of forehead towards ear. Sense the jaw relaxed. Notice the rib cage, gently, buoyantly, riding the tides of the breath breathing your body. Awareness resting now at the tip of the nose. And you're just feeling the sensation of breath moving rather than just witnessing it, actually feeling the breath at the gateway of the nose. And have relaxed concentration. Nothing needs to be furrowed or fought with. The excavation happens of its own processing. The way sunlight calls to the seeds, and the old becomes new. Staying with the breath. Again from the Tao Te Ching, look and it can't be seen. Listen and it can't be heard. Reach and it can't be grasped. Above it isn't bright and below it isn't dark, seamless, unnameable, it returns to the realm of nothing. Form that includes all forms, image without an image, subtle, beyond all conception. Approach it and there is no beginning, follow it and there is no end. You can't know it, but you can be it, at ease in your own life. Just realize where you come from. This is the essence of wisdom. Gently drawing the palms together into a prayer. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. Thank you so much for joining our practice today. May the support of the practice continue throughout this day and all your days. Namaste.